Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another bright and shiny episode of B2B Breakfast to Business with your morning girl, Bea Lim, also the managing director of Team Asia. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a really cool, interesting, and lovely topic. And our episode for today and our weekly podcast is going to touch on staying connected, and we're going to go into that in just a bit. Now, you guys know that our second season goes deep dive into what's happening around us, conversations that matter with real life stories, because at the end of the day, we want you to be in the know, in the now, because that's what's happening around us, everybody. With us rebuilding from the COVID-19 pandemic, there is no way but up. Last episode, we had a marketing expert all the way from Australia, Miss Annalise Warren, and we talked about the importance of staying connected with our respective audiences and keeping our business relationships afloat, even in the midst of the pandemic. We also learned that we have to plan the work and work the plan for our brands to not only survive and thrive, but to also rebuild. I love what she talked about, having the pieces of a Monopoly game thrown around, and it was up to us to put that game back together. And it is quite exciting despite the many challenges. And we just have to soldier on, plan the work the plan, and stay connected so that we can ensure that business continues. So if we talked about staying connected from a business angle, here at B2B, we thought about, hey, you know what about personal relationships, right? Like, we know that COVID-19 has taken a toll on all aspects of our lives. But the question really is, what about us? Like, we talked about business for a while. We've talked also about brands and what's going on out there, but we haven't really gone so much into what is staying connected now with COVID-19 or the remnants of the pandemic. How has it taken a toll on our personal lives? What about us? What about our loved ones? What about our family, our friends? What about love? Yes, I said love. Because we talked about how we can stay connected from a business point of view. Now we want to talk about how to stay connected from a personal point of view. And today, I already gave a hint that we are talking about something lovely, because our exciting topic for today has a very special guest that can talk about love in the time of Corona. You heard it right, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to talk about staying connected in the time of Corona. And we're just going to go straight into it. Let me introduce to you guys our special guest for today. She is the founder and editor-in-chief of brideandbreakfast.ph, Miss Janna Simpao. Bride and Breakfast is the country's premier wedding publications. Since it was established in 2010, Bride and Breakfast has stayed true to its original mission, which is to inspire and help brides plan their dream wedding through original and carefully curated content. They feature not only the most stylish, gorgeous, and magazine-worthy weddings in the metro, but also tapping creme de la creme of wedding suppliers, both seasoned and upcoming, and showcasing inspiring ideas that can make your wedding fashionably chic and character-filled. So today, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm, beautiful welcome to Miss Janna Simpao, founder and editor-in-chief of Bride and Breakfast. Hey, Janna, how are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm super excited that you're here with us because we really wanted to talk about love in the time of Corona. Like, a lot of people talk about it. We've been seeing a lot of memes. We've been seeing a lot of articles on how people are dating, are trying to date, are trying to meet people, are trying to keep relationship goals strong on Instagram.
Definitely.
So we wanted to talk about love in the time of Corona, especially in the wedding industry. And I know, as editor-in-chief of Bride and Breakfast, you know exactly what's going on, right? And we're so happy that you're with us, Janna. Thank you so much for being part of the show. And before we kickstart our very interesting conversation, let's do a quick icebreaker, right? I want people to get to know you a little bit more. And of course, if we're going to be talking about love in the time of Corona, we want to talk about love in general. So our icebreaker for today is, what has been your favorite chick flick or romantic movie that has been your go-to during the quarantine?
Okay, for this one, it's actually not a movie. I really like watching TV series. So one thing that I got back into this quarantine time is Downton Abbey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this series, but I watched this like years back. But then during this time, it's so funny. My husband actually asked me, "Hey, do you think Downton is a nice series to watch? And if so, can you watch it again with me?" So we're actually watching it. It's so funny that he's the one who's more into it, and I just love it. I love that it talks about love at a different time, and we've been watching it every night.
Oh, that's amazing. So I've been hearing about Downton Abbey, but I haven't really gotten into it. So I'm going to start watching it, especially after today's episode, because like a lot of people have been telling me about it, but I haven't had the chance. So now I'm going to watch it. So you highly recommend this, Jana.
I super recommend it because this is a time where, love is so aspirational as well. Like the type of commitment and romance that's in there, it's like a totally different level.
Really? So it's like something that we're craving for as of this moment, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's so different because it's the opposite of what we're experiencing now, which is everyone has to stay connected through the internet. And before they didn't have internet. So you're gonna see like how they had to survive their love in that circumstance.
I love it. So I'm going to also share with you that for me naman, when I was looking into this question, I was like, oh no, so what would be my go-to, right? Chick flick during the quarantine. And I have to say that it's also a series. And it's so what happened in like the first 2 weeks of the lockdown was I got into Crash Landing on You. I think I've spoken about this in previous B2B episodes, but I never thought I would be into K-drama. Crash Landing happened, and now I'm like, oh my God, it's the modern day Romeo and Juliet, if you think about it, right? So it's right up that
Correct,
alley
correct.
of different love stories in different times. And I'm super excited that we have two examples of love stories that, are brought on.
But can I just tell you once, sorry, I cut you, but I'm just so excited to tell you that once you get started with that K drama thing, there's no turning back. Like, Chloe is the entry point, and then after this, it's just gonna be your life.
I know. I mean, I have to say that right after Chloe, my friends pushed me to watch Descendants of the Sun. And like that was another marathon. It has
Mm-hmm.
kept me busy though during the quarantine. I mean, it's a good mental health break if you think about it, right?
Yeah, yeah. But
Awesome.
I love K drama. They have this very aspirational, perfect boy is into the girl plot line, which everyone wants, right? Like the guy does everything for the girl.
Absolutely. I think that that's why everybody loves it, right? Because it's the perfect world. It's the perfect world. All right. So talking about the quarantine also, Jana, what has kept you busy? Like what have you been up to during the quarantine? And how have you been able to stay connected with your loved ones?
Okay, for me, it's so funny. I feel like you would think that once you can't go to work, you can't go out, you'd have more free time. But it's the opposite for me. Like my days are so packed. I have two boys, I have two kids. So a part of like my other responsibilities, I have to make sure that I entertain them. But one of the things that got me so busy also this quarantine is I started my jewelry line, which has been like I've been doing it little by little like since last year, but only because now that I'm really at home that I really got to focus on it, and it's been such an inspiring journey for me in that sense because even if I can't be in the office, I still get to really work at home. And then plus of course our websites and our job, everything else is still up and running. Oh, and to stay connected with my family, I didn't get to answer your second question. Of course, there's Zoom, and every week my family were very close. So it's either my husband's side or my side that we have to meet for a Zoom meeting.
Wow. So you guys have Zoom inuman, Zoonuman. What do
More
people
of
call it now?
eating.
Oh, I love it. So it's like, it's eating meals together. No,
Yeah.
I love it. So actually my family does that as well. So my ninang and my tito would send over meals that they would cook. And we would be all in Zoom
Wow.
together. Yeah, that was a really cool way of staying connected because it was
That's
like, okay,
cute.
what do we do? Like, how everybody comes together for food, like around the dinner table, right? So it was really cool. They just sent us food and we would eat it like every two Saturdays. We would come together and eat it. So that was a great way to just stay connected. So I'm glad that you guys would do that as well. You would like
Yeah, yeah.
have, so was it like dinner every dinner time or like breakfast or lunch?
It's usually dinner or merienda. Like
Oh,
for my
nice.
family, it's usually merienda because we want to start early and we talk a lot. So, and then for my husband's side, it's usually dinner.
I love it. So you know what? Thank God for the internet because now we can do some
Yes.
stuff, right? Can you imagine? Like if we were
I
to
don't
go
know
back to
how
your
we would survive. No way.
seriously, like what you said earlier about Downton Abbey, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that was a time when there was no tech, right? But people still stayed connected.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
I love it. So, Jenna, on that note, like you've definitely gone into this whole quarantine, like making sure, like what you said, you have two boys, you keep them entertained. I love that you have your creative juices flowing with your jewelry line. So, congratulations on that, and that you also managed to make sure that everybody's connected. I want to be able to talk more also about your business, right? Your passion, which is Bride and Breakfast. And
Yes.
that is all about love and staying connected. I mean, it's about being able to celebrate one of the most precious, the most beautiful milestones in someone's life. And a lot of it is being able to connect not only with your partner or your loved one, but of course your family and friends that are invited into the mix. And of course your business partners that need to be part of the whole experience, right?
Yes.
So
Definitely.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about our experience in terms of the wedding industry, bride and breakfast, and how you guys have truly made it possible for love to win in the time of Corona. So I guess my first question, Jana, is bride and breakfast is part of the wedding industry. How is it doing? Despite the pandemic, and even it's been quite a journey for brides and you guys for the past year because we started with the Taal volcano and that was a huge game changer at the start of the year. So, how has it been the first half of the year? How are you guys doing?
Well, let me backtrack a bit. For 2019, there were, I think, not necessarily less weddings, but people were really looking forward to 2020 because of the date. So a lot of brides kind of held back in 2019 and put their wedding for 2020 because it's such a, fantastic um year and everyone is looking at it as a milestone. So when January came in, everyone was just expecting that it would be a busy year, and all the brides were like, you know, um, trying to get a date but couldn't get a date. And then Taal happened, which was very devastating for a lot of the brides, and also because Tagaytay is one of the main locations for weddings. I mean, you would know that. Like, I'm sure you've attended a wedding in Tagaytay once or twice, right? It's a favorite destination spot. So when that happened, a lot of the content that we had to write was really about how to adjust to that event that was happening. And a lot of the brides also had to move their wedding to, let's say, Manila, just so that they, for sure, they won't be hit by another eruption if ever Taal did erupt. But then a few weeks later, I mean, or a month later, it's another thing that they got hit with. So it really has been coming from a high of highs, which is like 2020 is the year, all of a sudden, all of that was like stripped under your feet, and you have to make a lot of adjustments. And this is not only for the couples, but also for the wedding suppliers. Each and every one was affected. But if we were to talk about brideandbreakfast.ph as a business, a lot of the suppliers, of course, had to stop their work, especially during the ECQ because there were no gatherings allowed, right? But Bride and Breakfast could never take a break. Like from day one of 2020, we had to be up on our toes, really making sure that we were giving the right information, the right content to our viewers, and whatever it is, whether it's the AL or the pandemic, we had to churn out content that was relevant to our viewers. We couldn't leave them hanging because we, as a website, actually act like their digital best friend as they plan their wedding. So if they're panicking and they're devastated, we have to also change your tone. We have to be there for them and create content that can calm them down or can guide them through what's happening.
Okay, that's very important note that you shared, Jana, because you also mentioned that you guys were everybody's digital best friend, especially at the time when you said that the brides were also panicking a little bit, like, with everything that was going on. Or if it weren't the brides that were going to have their wedding soon, it was also, bride to bees that their dates were probably far off, but they're like, how are we going to push through
Yeah,
with this, right?
correct.
And I loved what you said also. Some folks were able to quote and unquote take a break, meaning because they, of course, couldn't really have the events happening. But Bride and Breakfast, you guys were busy since day one of 2020 up until today. How did you guys stay connected with your readers? How did you guys do it?
A lot of people see me as the face of Bride and Breakfast, but really there are a lot of girls behind the team working hard and getting the right content out there, because the main thing about staying connected, it's not just about churning out content or being present or having a voice. You can't be tone deaf. You have to know also when you're going to talk about something, what type of information you're going to be talking about, because sometimes if you talk about something that's not appropriate for that day, it's just gonna backfire. It's not gonna be helpful for everyone. It's gonna stress them out more. Or plus you're gonna get backlash for talking about something that's not important or shouldn't be talking about at the time. So I think one of the ways we really started or we made sure that we connected with the people is making sure that we had appropriate content. Because even if you are talking or showing something, if people don't want to listen, you're not going to connect with them anyway. So I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about the team. We really had to really think, like, is what I'm saying helpful? And it's always like the core principle of Bride and Breakfast. Whatever we put out there, it has to be helpful to the one who's reading it.
Absolutely. I love what you said. At the end of the day, we just want to be able to help, right? And helping first and foremost is being there as their digital best friend and providing them with timely, relevant, and very good content, meaning something that will really truly be helpful for them, not something that is tone deaf, right? Like, I love what you said. It's not about just churning content, it's about churning content that is relevant and meaningful to people. And you also said, Jana, that you have a huge team, right, behind this, like, lovely ladies working in the back end, really pushing for content that will help our readers, right? And I'm sure that they've come across the feelings and the thoughts of our readers, right? Based on your experience, Jana, maybe I don't know if you can speak from a bride and breakfast point of view or also your own, right? Based on your experiences or the experiences of your own readers, is it more difficult to stay connected during these days or to pursue love?
Well, I think it's different because our audience really, most are already engaged. So more or less there's no turning back, right? I mean, they've found their partners, and they just have to make sure that they are working on their relationship to stay together. I mean, up until also they get married, right? I think for couples, there has been, or there was a lot of pressure. So I'm sure a lot of the brides were crying, the grooms were stressed. So in terms of relationship, I'm sure that really took a toll on their on how they dealt with each other as well. Um, but I think if you're talking about love life, or how people are looking for that partner, definitely a struggle. I've heard stories like, paano na yan? How will I look for a boyfriend? Like, it was hard enough while there was no pandemic. What more now, right? So it might sound a little bit funny, um, but that's the reality. Of course, you are cutting off personal connection, but I also know that there have been stories of creativity, like people still trying to meet other people online and stuff like that. So I think there will always be a way. It's impossible for us not to love or fall in love. So it's just a matter of how this will unfold and how people will think of creative ways to connect or meet people.
I love it because at the end of the day, love will find a way, right? How many songs have shared that line? Like, love will find a way. And you also touched on something that I want to go deeper on, Jana, which is creativity. People have found creative ways to go about, this whole lockdown situation or the health crisis, right? Especially our brides, right? Especially our brides and grooms or any of their partners or, their suppliers and whatnot. I want to touch on that based on your experience, also on what you've been reading or whatnot. How are the weddings different now compared to pre-pandemic? And can you share some creative ways or creative adjustments that our fellow Filipino couples have done to actually really push through and say, hey, love wins despite COVID-19?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to start with something closer to home. Let's say for Bride and Breakfast, it was the first year that we did B&B Deals Fest. So usually, brides and grooms look for their suppliers in bridal fairs. They attend like all these functions that happen in all these event places. But for this year, what we did was we launched B&B Deals Fest, which was a 2-week online festival wherein we had different deals from suppliers that are offered to the couples and showing them that, hey, even if times are different now, we are offering a service that can accommodate to the restrictions. And we also had BNB TV, where we had some shows, interviews with people, asking suppliers or asking experts how brides are supposed to move forward. So in that sense, I think we wanted to make sure that we didn't push for how things were done before. Instead, we adjusted to how things are now, and showing that to the couples that, hey, because I didn't want them to get paralyzed na, oh no, I can't have the wedding that, how weddings look like before. Then that means I cannot have a wedding. Through B&B Deals Fest, we show them that, hey, you know what? We just have to follow the rules, but if there's a will, there's a way. You can still have a wedding. You can still push through with something beautiful. It doesn't mean that just because it's small, it's not beautiful anymore. And after that, we really saw, and I'm sure we're not the only ones. Like, I'm sure wedding suppliers, people also pushed and showed people and encouraged people that they can still get married. And after that, we saw a lot of creative home weddings. I am blown away by some of the photos that get submitted to us right now. Like, I think, hey, where was this wedding? And it's just the couple and probably their parents who attend, but the way it was decorated, it looked like a fairy tale setup that I thought was really for a big wedding. But suppliers are adjusting. They can make a home look magnificent and breathtaking right now. Couples are getting creative because I feel like they also have, I mean, they lost some control, but also gained uh they gained some sort of control as well, because now they're not forced to do weddings the way it was done. Like if they wanted it intimate, no one's gonna judge them for making it intimate. So really, like, there's so much creativity everywhere.
Absolutely. Like I love being able to see photos on, social media of brides and grooms actually also not making light of the situation, but using the situation also to showcase that, hey, you know what, love wins. Like I've seen so many folks, their photos are with masks and saying, whatever, COVID-19, yes, you're here, but you're not gonna
Correct.
stop my wedding, you're not gonna stop our love, and love really wins. Like, we may have to be a more like have a more intimate wedding, but love doesn't need to stop. It just needs to evolve into
To
something
something else.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, to something else, right? It's not about postponing it. It's about actually making it blossom even more. Like what you said, they may have lost control, so to speak, of ideas or things that they thought they had to do pre-pandemic because of the pressure. But now they've actually gained even more access to their, to what they can do with their own weddings and have their own preference into, how to celebrate it. And it's not about scaling back. I actually feel that it's about being able to showcase, the things that you really want to showcase, which is the couple, their love, and how they want to celebrate their love. Because also, what a momentous time to get married,
Correct.
to showcase and to say, hey, you know what? This is commitment. Highlight, underscore, bold letters encircled, right?
And I always tell the brides who are getting married this year, we have one from our team who is getting married this year. I'm like, this is a story that will be so amazing when you tell it to your grandchildren. When you look back, you're gonna really say, wow, our love really conquered something so big.
I know these are the stories that we hear about.
Hmm.
Like, that we hear about now from our lolos and lolas who got married during the war, who got married during times when there was, a lot of different challenges. Like,
Hmm.
they had to write to each other via telegrams and snail mail. And now it's love in the time of Corona.
Hmm.
It's more text messages and Zoom dates
Yeah,
and, stuff like that. So, if love won before, it's gonna win now, right? and
definitely,
and I think that
definitely.
that's definitely what your readers have shared with you, and that they continue to share with you through the photos and the stories.
Hmm.
So Jana, on that note, I also wanted to do a quick check-in from a business perspective,
Yeah.
because we all know that the wedding industry here in the Philippines is huge. Huge. I mean, not only because a lot of people want to get married, but it's also because we're naturally lovable people. So aside from us wanting to get married and whatnot, right? We've also created a beautiful industry where people really come together to create the most amazing experiences, the most meaningful experiences also for couples and their families, across the Philippines and even people abroad, right? Because there are a lot of destination weddings that
Yes.
also happen here in the
Yes.
Philippines. So we know that, of course, COVID-19 did affect the industry, and like what you said, we can still get married, weddings can still happen as long as we follow the rules. On that note, what support or help do you think the wedding industry needs from the government or from our leaders to be able to bounce back from the pandemic?
Well, you know what? I feel like it's something that affects all businesses. What really is affecting the wedding industry the most is the restriction on the type of gathering that we can have right now. So, you know, the number of people that can attend your wedding and then the requirements, it's really a lot. So some of the brides just opt to push back, or really just go for a very small wedding, which is also a loss of opportunity for some of the suppliers, because of course some of them are not as relevant now as they were before. And I think the only way for them to bounce back is if we start having lesser restrictions. But the only time those restrictions will be lifted is if we're safe. So I think what the government can really do is really work very hard in trying to combat this disease and supporting the medical frontliners, taking care of the, I guess, less fortunate people, because they are the ones who are battling this war. And if they're losing on that side, then definitely it becomes a domino effect to all the industries out there. And so I cannot say specifically that the government can, focus on the wedding industry, or unless they want to give money, right? And allow like the businesses to ride it out, which I don't think is possible. I think the bigger problem really is the disease, trying to stabilize the health of the Philippines. And once that's it, I think the wedding industry is willing to adjust. We don't have to go big immediately, but if we were given more freedom on how to do the gatherings, I think it can jumpstart the industry again.
That's right. That's right. And I think I love what you said about it being also an adjustment, right? It's not an either or a do or die. It's more of like, hey, okay, what are the things that we can do? What are the things that we can't do? But like what you said, the health of the Philippines in general is what we need to concentrate on, right? To be able to actually also ensure the health of industries across the Philippines. Because, yes, we may be talking about different industries, right, Jana? But if you think about it, all of these industries are almost all interconnected. Our wedding suppliers are also event suppliers, right?
Yeah.
Wedding venues and the like are part of tourism and all that jazz. So there's just so much also that it's like a multiplier effect, right? Like, it's not just about one industry. It's about totality, the total population of the Philippines and our health in general. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that as well. So Jana, we are coming to the end of our quick interview on the love in the time of Corona. You we said earlier that we've always stayed true to the mission of Bride and Breakfast, right? Is to be able to create relevant, meaningful, beautiful, but most importantly, helpful content that will be something that can aid our couples, brides, grooms, parents, everybody who are in that part of their lives or in celebrating that milestone already. What would be your advice, Jana, to our listeners who are pursuing love or staying connected, or even to couples who are looking forward actually to tying the knot, and then they sort of like put a pauser, right? They put a pause on like, okay, what to do next?
I think, we are a country, and you mentioned this earlier. We are a country who made a big story around weddings. We love looking at weddings, and even brides, they feel like this is a milestone that has to be celebrated, that has to be, grand and all of these things, because really it is beautiful. But I also want to say that, a wedding is one day. The marriage is more important. I'm not saying the wedding isn't important, but the marriage is much more important. So, what do I mean by this? If you want a smaller wedding and you feel like you're okay with it, you're comfortable with it, then go ahead, have it right now. There's nothing wrong with having a small wedding. You won't get judged. It doesn't mean that your love is less because your wedding is smaller. It's okay. But if you do still want that big wedding, it's also okay. What you do is you just pause. Uh, if you want, you can work on your relationship first, because, as I said again, after the wedding, you're going to be together day in, day out. So you have to make sure that you did not only prepare for your wedding, you also prepared for your marriage. And for those who, we have readers, no, that are single and they just really like to see weddings, wala pa silang boyfriend, or they're not yet engaged. It's okay. I mean, just enjoy it now. If you're not gonna get engaged anytime soon, if you're not gonna get a boyfriend, just look through content, have a folder, a wedding folder, get your ideas there. But at the end of the day, just like any crisis that the world has experienced, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And when we reach that time, you're gonna understand why God allowed it, and you're going to say, oh, okay, that's why I had to postpone my wedding, or that's why I had to have a small wedding. I always believe in hope. I always believe in love. And you know what? A lot of the people who pushed through and they knew they wanted a small wedding, they wrote to us. They said it was beautiful. Like there's nothing lacking in it. Like we had the best time. So I know that whatever you choose, big wedding, small wedding, medium wedding, you're still marrying the person you love. So nothing is lost. It's still amazing.
That's so beautiful. I loved, if I may, just to go back a little bit when you said earlier that okay, if you need to take a pause for couples, right? Maybe you can work on your relationship first, right? And then to our single readers, right? Those who are not yet engaged or those who may be single, maybe this is also the time to work on yourself, right? To work
Yes,
on loving
correct.
yourself and taking care of yourself and being that beautiful person that will give so much love when God's time comes, right? And that really touched on what you said earlier, also, Jana. That really inspired me. Also, is that we have built this beautiful fairy tale story around weddings, and it's beautiful and we love it, we really do. But at the same time, the fairy tale actually goes into that marriage, and one of the things that we can do right now is to be able to work on that part, the work on that story, and even make it better, knowing that the love that has been brought on during Corona, during the time of Corona, is so much stronger, and the commitment is so much stronger because we are amid one of the biggest challenges of our lives or our century, right? And we are still kicking, we're still screaming, we're still making things happen, and
We're fighting. Yeah.
we're fighting for love to win.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Correct. You said it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Jana. And maybe just like one last thing that I did want to ask you, right? If you were to leave our listeners with a food for thought and staying connected in the time of Corona, what would be that food for thought? Like, what would inspire them to keep being creative?
Okay. I think a relationship advice that I would give in staying connected, I think it's also advantageous that, we have restrictions, we can't see each other. And a lot of relationships really thrive on conversations, which there's no restriction on right now. I mean, you can talk to a person, you can write them letters, you can have a Zoom date, you can call them, get to know people. And if it's for single people, it's not just about getting to know people just to hook up or, have a boyfriend, right? Or a girlfriend. Get to know people, talk to people, find something interesting about them. And that's how relationships start, whether it's friendship or a romantic relationship. So I don't believe that there's no chance of ever meeting someone during this time. Conversations are free, whether you're single, engaged, or married. I mean, whatever it is, just have good quality conversations.
I love what you said. Yes, you may have restrictions, but conversations do not have restrictions. You can have conversations day in, day out, and you really have to know people, guys. Get to know whoever, your friend, your partner. Use this time to be able to deepen that relationship
Yeah,
and make it grow even stronger roots, right? Like make the roots go even deeper so that when the time comes, you're like a sturdy,
correct.
you're a sturdy tree, like, intertwined tree. All right. So a lot of words of wisdom from our amazing Janna Simpao of the Bride and Breakfast
Oh, thank
PH. Thank you
you.
so much, Jana, for sharing not only your experience but words of wisdom and love actually for our listeners. Maraming salamat. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And Jana, I just wanted to check in, like, where can our folks know more about Bride and Breakfast? How can people be connected with you guys? Go ahead.
So you can visit our website at brideandbreakfast.ph. You can find wedding suppliers there. You can look at beautiful weddings. We have relationship articles, everything about weddings and love. It's there. But if you want to stay connected in terms of social media, of course, we have Instagram, Bride and Breakfast, and we're also Bride and Breakfast on Facebook. So just please follow, stay connected, and I hope that whatever we churn out, whatever we bring, to the table brings you joy and inspiration. We really try to bring out beautiful things to make people happy and inspired.
That's fantastic. Happy inspired is what we want you guys to be. And it's not just about weddings, as Jana mentioned, guys. It's also about love and making things grow during this time. And I think for today's episode, our reality bite is simple. We've said it once, we're gonna say it again, and we're going to say it forever. Love wins. Love wins. It doesn't matter if it's a pandemic. It doesn't matter if there are a lot of different challenges. Love is so strong, ladies and gentlemen, and it doesn't have to be even romantic love. It could be your friendship, it could be your family love, it could be interconnected love. I mean, with your fur babies and everything. But love at the end of the day, guys, love wins. Love in the time of Corona is such a special time because we have been placed, in a situation where we do have to get creative. But once again, what we said is this situation doesn't mean that things have to stop. Things just have to evolve. And what better way to do that than to make it evolve into something deeper, something stronger, and something even more creative. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Breakfast to Business, B2B, this wonderful Monday morning. As we talk to Janna Simpao on love in the time of Corona. Thank you once again, Janna, for being part of the magic, for being part of our fight for love. And may everybody have happiness and joy the Bride and Breakfast PH way. So thank you so much to our wonderful listeners. Once again, you can continue being in the know and continue being in the now by liking our social media pages as well. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, and of course, our wonderful website, www.teamasia.com. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And Janna, more power to Bride and Breakfast PH. Go, guys. Love wins.